again. I was actually ready to see up as well.
Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Cool, that works. Hey guys. Today's going to be the start of a new stream that I'm doing. What my plan really is to go over some different sort of showcases that I'm working on. Hey guys. Today's going to be the start of a new stream that I'm doing. Sorry, just waiting to get this working. Okay, so we'll get the stream started. The plan for this sort of channel is I'm going to talk through a number of different showcase things that I'm working on. So from AI advisors to a bunch of different games and some apps. And also I want to just use this sort of channel as the ability to sort of like check in on people, see what questions they might have, do some Q&A. You know, if there's anybody that wants sort of advice on sort of game development AI, then, you know, just shoot me in the channel and I'll sort of answer back. So the things I'm working on at the moment are sort of an advanced digital AI assistant. You can think of it as a bit like Alexa on steroids. You can pick your avatar. I'll do a showcase of it actually working, and you can see like it has a whole bunch of functions that it can assist you with. You can talk to it. The whole bunch of different things that it can do. And then I'll talk a little bit about sort of game I'm working on at the moment, Drone Commander. It's a kind of RTS, old school sort of Command and Conquer style strategy game. I'm coding that up in Pygame and having a lot of fun with that. This is a sort of up and coming game that I'm going to be working on, and the sort of the idea of this game is it's inspired by some older RPGs that have kind of like been forgotten about. And what I want to do with this is to really sort of build up this. Yeah, you could think of it like a Zelda, but with like more beat 'em up mechanics, and it definitely goes down a different strain. But you know, Zelda did take some inspiration from some of the games that I'm personally been influenced to build up this game. And then a game that's sort of been quite popular among my friends is sort of Lifted. So it's a game where you can you can think of it as like a combination of GTA and Drug Wars. So more like Drug Wars in design, because obviously I'm not going to build a full GTA as a single individual. And the idea is that you try to earn money. You sort of hustle your way out of the city, and you've got you can pick up jobs. You can do good things, bad things, and so that game's kind of fairly well matured. And yeah, there's a lot of dev that I've got working with that as well. So you'll see me flicking towards this weird channel where you can see my OBS. I'm just keeping an eye on the viewers in the stream to see if there's any questions that people might have. I should probably actually change the intro. Let's see if I can do that. I could just say, ask me anything. Game, dev, and AI. Q&A. There we go. Change that to make it a little bit more inviting, at least. Okay, that probably didn't update, but it's fine. It's no big deal. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to be doing is working on this Drone Commander game. I'll show it working and then play it for a little bit, and then what I'm going to do is just start working on features. And as people drop in, I'm going to keep an eye on the questions. I really should actually add some text over this just to say, ask me a question. See how that looks? Stick it there, make it a bit bigger. Done. You'll hear me coughing a bit. I'm not 100% healthy today. Got a bit of a chest infection, but still going to work through some of this. And I'm going to keep an eye on the feeds. Okay, so going to get started now and just start boot up the game. I'm just keeping an eye on the channels. I'm a little bit behind, so I think my stream lags a bit, which is fine. But I'm going to sort of play through this game and then show it sort of working in action. So yeah, this game's an RTS. It's the sort of main idea behind it really is it's a bit of like a homage to StarCraft, and you can think of like Command and Conquer, Dune, all sort of things like that. So it's sort of heavily inspired, but I just wanted to tell my own story and build things my own way. I'm going to shift this text up a bit so it doesn't interfere too much. Or maybe just put it at the bottom for now. So yeah, the game starts off as they jump in hyperspace. There's no real sound at the moment. I've not sort of worked on the audio just now. The cutscene comes in, so you've kind of just jumped in at the moment when they're needing help. You've just jumped on the outskirts of the Earth's orbit. There's a lot of stuff that you kind of need to do, small things like these cutscenes. Like, if I hadn't pushed enter, then it wouldn't have gone that far. So I need to add a bit in the code to sort of do like a time check. Like, if they haven't pressed enter within, say, a few seconds, then just skip to the next text scene. So what's happening here is one of your former colleagues has been captured by these vampire people, and they've sort of turned her into a vampire. And that's how the whole thing starts. So you've got an enemy faction, which are humans but mutated, and so your commander's just basically told you to get your act together. Okay, so these red lines are just dev lines, so they're not going to be there in the actual game, but it just shows me, the issues that I'm still having with pathfinding. So there's a lot of pathfinding mechanics. You see, I'd rather that builder turn to face the thing that it's building. The idea that I'm doing here is it's got every, I want a construction pad for everything that I build. So now what happens is I can build out some units, and we've got some reinforcements there. And I'll shift this out of the way. So yeah, you can see these sort of the mechanics for pathfinding still sucks pretty bad. But it's not terrible, but it could be better. For a first shot, it works. That's the main thing. Why can't I place this out? Because I don't have enough money. Right, so I need to get my guys into place. Now we're under attack, so I need to get my builder out of the way. Don't want to get... So, okay, we survived the first onslaught. But yeah, you can see I really need to work on this pathfinding. It's just navigating its way around obstacles. I've built in some really basic pseudo commands for it to find its way around. It'll project a path like directly in front of it, and then if that path encounters an enemy, it'll move to right angle tangent. But there's not much more than that, and you can see these guys obviously stuck here as well. So I built these laser turrets. They're a bit overpowered at the moment, and the laser turrets can't be taken out, which is not great for the enemy obviously, but it's just me just starting the game and just playing about. Oh, I think they took out my builder. Oh well, that's fine. We've got a few laser turrets, should be easy to do. So these are some new units that I'm building as well. So that's the last onslaught, and it should take them out. Well, the laser should get them. There we go. Then you get a good job message, and then the game should end for the first level. Obviously, that's not the first level, and this isn't like a battle summary screen. It's just really me just putting bits in play. In gaming or like in development, we would just call this as putting in a skeleton framework. But that's the basics. That's the first sort of thing that I wanted to just show. Hey Valentino, thanks for that. Yeah, I'm just going to be taking a quick break just to grab a drink, and then I'll be back to talk more through what I'm doing. Yeah, but thanks for watching, man. Feel free to ask any questions as well. So, like, part of the stream is just really for me to help, people give some feedback on coding, and as well as showcase my stuff. I want to help other people as well. So, if you've got any questions, just put them in the chat. Okay, that's me back for now. So my plan really is just to sort of talk through what I'm going to be building next and start building it. Great. So yeah, let me switch back to the screen, and yeah, so I'm going to start building out the next facet of the game. So this is what the code base looks like. So I've split the code base into, I've got version 1.1 and it's nested, maybe just to show, just for people's benefit of understanding how the best way to structure your code. So if I look at this, and maybe I'll come out of this here. If I look at this code from the root directory, you'll find that I've got like a couple of pictures here. You can ignore them. I've got an assets folder and I've got a spare functions folder. And the assets folder really is for me to keep all of my images in here. So I'm just going to quickly skip back to here, make sure that the stream's working fine. So yeah, the way that the reason why you have, so there's a few reasons I'd want my assets external from the actual code base itself. The first being is this code base is Git version managed, right? So every time I make a change, I'm pushing that up to Git. Now, images can be quite big, so the last thing you want to do is have all of your images, as you keep adding sprites and things, it would just make that folder much, much more chunky. Although obviously I lose the benefit of having them versioned, so I just have to be really careful not to lose them and back them up. So like in my code, for example, I'll have a setup folder where I'll reference these images. So I'll say, let's go, I'll say, this is actually a function that I've built to load images. This is the classic function in Pygame. So I specify this path, which is at the top here, I think. It's the assets path. So basically I use Python to figure out what the current path is, and then I then append assets, so I know what the parent path is. I point it to the assets folder, and then I can use that to reference all of the different images that I want to look at. Sorry, I just flick between the chat channels to make sure that there's there's no sort of, if any questions, just ask them as they come in, and I'll answer them as I go. So I reference these images, and then if I sort of jump back to the folder, you can see the images that I've made. So I'll go jump to my Gamedev folder. So the game's called Drone Commander, and in the assets folder, I'll have, for example, a whole bunch of different sprites. So I'll have the characters, and the only really one main formed one is sort of called Claire. And so I'll show you what that looks like and sizes, if I can find it again. Yeah, so let's try and sort of increase the size. So this is the sort of the first character I'd worked on, different ideas. The idea is I'm going to make it more of like a holographic naval commander, maybe not a commander, but maybe like a naval, or not as far as I could make it an admiral, possibly. And then I've got this guy Drake, which I'm kind of working on. So one of the things that sort of made this struggle is the actual image size. That the image size that Drake was quite big, but as is with sort of Claire and Gainsborough, like they're actually quite small, right? So these images are like 200, roughly 200 by 200 pixels. So you lose a lot of detail. So if I go to like the original one, you can see like, even this one's not a really well detailed one anyway, but you can see just at that size at 800 by 700, there's a lot more detail than when you compress it. But sometimes compressing has some nice effects as well when you compress the images. And so why do I want to compress images to 200? Well, because the screen's 1500 by 800 roughly. So that's the sort of the main rationale behind me sort of compressing these images. And so, I've got all different things. I've got images that I've made up for cursors, and I sort of draw all this in Sprite. So it just sort of, Sprite's my rendering tool. So there's some explosions, there's sort of menu, bits and bobs. And then we could go and look at units. So, for example, this is the simple drone unit that I've been building. So I include like the hyperspace frames as well for the drone, but the drone's pretty basic, right? And again, you can see that sort of blurring effect due to compression, but when you actually put it in, it's not that bad. Obviously, if I sort of see, you can see like from here it looks pretty good, and even if you zoom in here, it still looks pretty good. So overall, like dealing with images and sprites in games, you do need to think about how that's going to change as the screen resolution changes and things like that. So that's, all of the images is controlled in this setup file that I've made. I pull it all in, and then I do some image loading. There's another thing, a trick that you want to do in Pygame is you'll want to run a convert. So when you load these images, there's a step called convert. I only use it if I've got a lot of images or they're quite bulky. But convert, for example, here, it does some sort of compression stuff so that your game will load faster, because the more images you've got, the slower the game's going to load. So that's something to take into account as well. Okay, so I'm just going to check in on the chats, and then I'm going to start coding some AI behavior, and I think that's probably going to be a big important thing that I need to get done. So at the moment, let's jump into the skirmish, and I'll show you how that plays. It plays almost exactly the same as the campaign mode for now. But eventually this skirmish is going to be where you sort of pick your map, you pick how many teams you want to fight, and there'll be a lot of different artifacts compared to the campaign, because the campaign's going to start off, you've not got many units, and then you'll build up your tech tree over time and things like that. Right, so in the skirmish mode, basically, yeah, you can see them hiding there. I've not. That's a little trick that I've done. Right, I've not actually hid them off a screen just yet, so I just kind of hid them at the bottom, and then they just sort of jump in. So the enemy's up here. Right, I better start building. The enemy's got some destroyers as well, so I better get to work. And I don't think I'll get many reinforcements in this campaign, so I really better get to work quite quickly. But we'll play it out. But the AI is not very smart, right? So at the moment, what happens is the AI just, a few waves come in and they just come towards you. And that's obviously not great logic. So what I'm going to do is I'll just play through this a bit. I'm running out of money. I've kind of made it a bit silly on myself. Interesting. I see, that's why. This guy's stuck. Go. Right, so now what I'll do is I'm going to build out some laser turrets. They're coming. Won't get that many laser turrets in time. Oh yeah, I forgot their whole construction yard was there and everything. Alright, so I've kind of not going to get any more money now because they took out my MCV and I took out theirs. But yeah, so like that's because I've just built some waves, but they basically come at me in waves. And yeah, what else can I say? Like they're, oh yeah, so I think their harvesters didn't didn't unpack. So it's just their units, and they're gonna wait a while and then they're gonna come and attack again. And I see those red lines, but again, these red lines, they're just temporary at the moment. It's like, as a developer, like you need to see the what's going on behind the scenes of like the code that you write. Otherwise, you won't realize how messed up the pathfinding is. So in my case, you can see like these zigzags, they're clearly not good. Excuse me. Right, I think I built enough for now, so I've got enough defences. I should last out this one. I'll let it attack me, and then I'm going to start coding up and thinking about how I'm better placed to... Yeah, so what's happening is like I tried to build a turret, right, and then I moved it away, but the command I have is just wait every 10 seconds and go back to the job that you were doing. And clearly, obviously, that's not right because I'm in negative money and things, so it's clearly, and it's built a turret over the existing one. So these are all like the niggling issues that you'll find when you're developing a game. Like, just because you think things should behave a certain way logically, like in actuality, they won't. So, yeah, let's see what's gonna, I don't know what time code they're gonna attack, so I'll just jump into the code base and have a look. So I have a skirmish folder which details all of the sort of skirmish actions. So I'll have a battle logic. This is the main meat of the actual way that the game plays itself out. But it's not it's not technically the level logic though, right? So it's just like how the GUI should look, how the units should move, what happens when you select a unit, you know, or if you select an individual unit and things like that. And so you can think of this battle logic code that I've got as just controlling the actual game, the in-game play, but the level logic is specifically, in this case, for this map. And I've got talking, I'm going to remove that. Sorry, just put start game. This is the hyperspace introduction scene where you jump in. I'll probably ditch that because you won't need it for the skirmish. So there's no show off there, you're just fighting and building up. So these guys are just waiting. I don't know how long we're going to wait, so let's have a look in the logic. So 3, 4, 10. So I'm well below that. So if the scene is third wave, scene second wave, the time remaining is below this much, set it to the second wave. So for some reason, they haven't decided to go into search and destroy mode, which leaves us as a bit of an impasse because I won't have enough money to take them out. That's fine. It lets me have a look at what's happened, gone wrong with the logic here. So what I said is, if there's no scene and there's no reinforcements, do I need this reinforcements in the code? Probably not. Cutscene, notify reinforcements equals true. I don't need that. Just get rid of it altogether. Just say if there's no scene and it's below this time, build the starting team. I've got to be careful though, I don't want to reset this scene, so I'm going to go to scene as start game. I'm going to jump out here and just sort of diagnose the code and then fix it. So what's happening is for some reason they're not attacking, and so the scene starts at, so this is the very first one, so we kick off, I set the scene at start. This is just a flag that I'm using to move it forward. So then they jump in from hyperspace, and then if the scene is from hyperspace is active, it will keep doing that, and I believe this will set it to start. So this hyperspace, once it completes, will set it to start game, and then the AI logic will continuously run while it's in start game. And I think probably what I want to do now is, rather than call this scene, I want to call this AI logic scene. So I can separate it from external scenes. Or maybe, yeah, because it's AI logic, that's probably the best way to do it. So we'll create an AI logic scene here. And we'll set it to nothing, right? Or we'll set it, we'll keep it. So this is a bit of coding considerations to take into account. Like, do you want to set a flag as just being empty, or say that it's empty? And I'll just call it uninit for now. And then in here, what we could say is if AI logic scene equals uninit, and the time is less than this certain time, then I'm going to build a starting team. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if the time is less than this certain time, then I'm going to set this to second wave. The second wave will then set that to third wave. If it's third wave, I'm going to set that scene to complete, and I'll set this self.scene equals complete for now. Actually, I won't even do that. So let's see how that fares up. See if that works. Sorry guys, I'm putting myself on mute when I'm coughing because I don't want it to go down the audio feed. So go into skirmish and we'll start building up. So when I automatically click that MCR, it deploys. So now what I'm going to do is be a little bit pragmatic and just build better defences first. So it took me a while to like even get the builder to queue up items, right? It's like really hard when you look at a game and you just expect everything to work, but actually coding up the logic flow can be really painful. So it does take a lot of effort, and so we've got some money here, so I'll pick another one, small one. It takes a lot of effort. Whoa! So you can see this is clearly what's happened is it's going to keep generating that wave. Let's see. So this is just an. I know exactly what this is while I'm looking for it, but I'm just going to try and find what it is. So it builds the starting team, which is fine, I think. Oh, that gives them 5 reinforcements. So I should actually print what's happening. Print adding 5 allies. And then this guy, it adds 10 enemies. And then in this guy, another 10 enemies, and that's done. So what's happening is obviously this one just keeps spawning for some reason. So I'm saying if it's less than this, and I can see what's happened. It's because I've not unset this flag. So I'm actually quite surprised that it didn't crash quicker than it did, because these loops run at like microsecond intervals, right? And every microsecond it's going to be adding 5 units. And as you saw them kind of snowball out, but I would have expected that to finish much more quickly. So what I'm going to do, the easiest way to, it's just because this loop keeps getting called, so what I then do is I just change this to, first wave. And then that way, this one will call the second wave and set it to the second wave. So I should really be careful with my logic and only run the first attack if the scene has if the flag's successfully been set. And then I can then set the next flag and the next flag and the next flag, so that we always see the condition for each action that's being run. That's the best way to do it. It would just so happen that flag wouldn't have called anyway. I think I would have maybe been alright there, but maybe not. So this should be a fix now. So yeah, for those who aren't aware, I'm coding up this interface in Python. So I'm probably going to port it over to GML and maybe not do Python, just because the benefits of using GML are much better than the benefits of using Python. Simply because whilst Python and Pygame are great and easy to use, they're not Pygame, while it's designed as a game engine, it's not really designed as a game release engine, so it really sucks when it comes to having to port it. There's not a lot of support, and so obviously with something like GameMaker, it's highly monetized and it's not open source in the same way. So you've got a support team and things. So I'll eventually ship this over to Python. To GML GameMaker. The GameMaker GML is really similar to Python, and I've built lots of games in GML before, so it's not a big deal. Right, so that's cool. I've got my units here. I'll get my builder out of the way. Again, this kind of looks really primitive, and it is in many aspects, but it took like 3 weeks of game dev, so maybe, yeah, Imagine like when you play a game like so Command and Conquer or StarCraft, like those are games that have had teams of like 100, 200, 300 people building it out over months and months, maybe half a year, and this took me like 3 weeks. So I'm kind of happy with what I've got so far. Like I basically got that there. Obviously, there's a lot of legit and these are easy to fix out. I just haven't decided to focus a lot of my time on it yet because I want to build out features. As long as I've got something pseudo which demonstrates it works, then I'm happy. Excuse me. So yeah, like moving him away, and then what'll happen is he'll rebuild again. Yeah, so that 10-second interval that I've set. Obviously I need to really tweak the behaviour of all of these units. It's not a big deal though. It's good for the moment, but like everything from the worker to these harvester drones behave really well. They behave really nicely, but that's as long as everything goes according to plan. Yeah, so you can see these guys just return back if they're not actually in seek and destroy mode, but the next one will be they'll actually hunt down units and things. Right, that one's done. Sometimes it's good to actually play through the game, so then that way you can see how the things all work, even though you know what's going to happen. How long does a port like that typically take? Porting from Python always seems to drag on longer than I expect. Yeah, it's true. But you say it may not be so hard. Can you elaborate a bit more? Yeah, sure, certainly. So, maybe I can show just by firing up the GameMaker engine, right? So, one of the things that I realized, I can't remember. I can't remember my login details. Apologies. Right, I'll just talk through it. So in GameMaker, there's some subtle differences, right? One of the things is they use rooms, and the way that they manage decks and states a little bit different, right? So that can be a bit of a struggle at times because you're finding I'll put a fancy picture while I'm talking. So you're finding the flow of the IDE seems quite different from the flow of Pygame. But other than the idea of rooms, maybe there's a bit of canvas differences and the persistence of objects. It's pretty much identical in the sense that you've got a language that compiles and behaves in a very similar way. They're both quite simplistic. Now, if I wanted to port, say, this over, you're right. You make a really valid point. It depends on how you design the game, right? So, if you design the game from the beginning, like I've kind of done, I split things into folders, into drones, campaigns, scenes. It makes it a lot easier to port over because I've effectively written the Python code in a very GML GameMaker friendly way, because GameMaker uses, you group things by objects and then you group things by sprites, and those are grouped into folders, and that's just a habit that I've got into doing. But that's also the case that you would see in Unreal and Unity as well, right? So this would be a mode, and then this would be a mode, and then I've got my units that are under here, and they're all sort of formed here, and the images themselves, they're defined in the sort of setup. And so if you can think of it as I've logically segregated the I've made abstract I've abstracted out all of the different things so that there's a clear divide between them. And then that means that when I want to ship this over, like if I wanted to do this function, it would be pretty much the same, right? Like everything here, like debris, steering toggle, disable duration, all this stuff that I made up, like invincible timer, because obviously when you get hit, you need to give it a little bit of, you don't want them to just immediately take off the health every time, because if you get hit by 100 bullets, that's like, you know you're dead, right? Like every unit needs a little bit of a delay so it can absorb a few more shots. And so all of these things, HP, default HP, so like even in the manner that they're written is quite friendly to GML. So this entire class can be shipped over, including its functions. The only difference would be, like, if I was shipping this over, like I would like copy and paste this function. I would like literally take this function. I'd take, say, actions, for example, and then I would copy that. In my GML, I would open up in my object, in my this would be called my destroyer object. I would create a new I forget the name what they call it, but it's like a new function, right? Like you add in like a new, I think they call it command maybe, and then paste that in here, paste that in there, remove the def, like I'd remove that and ensure that these things are assigned to that object at the parent level, and then I would just add them in. And so that's all of these functions. I would add these in as separate commands to the single object. It might take me a little while, like for each migration, maybe the first function migration might take, maybe, let me think. The first function migration could take an hour and a half, because I would be twiddling and making sure, like trying to remember all the stuff that I forgot. But then after that, the second function would probably take like 10 minutes, and then the third function would probably take, as function in class, would take like 5 minutes, and then after that it's probably 5 minutes per function, or maybe less, maybe 2 minutes. And so, like, to migrate this whole code, I think a day and a half would be not unreasonable, given the way that I've structured it out. I hope that makes sense, Mitchell. I hope that kind of makes sense. So I guess really in summary, it's abstracting out the functional, the functional component, the objects and the sprites, the game flow and the maps. The rooms, the rooms, it's not too bad, because in my way that I do it, I have like this thing called, is it scenes, I think I use? Yeah, I've got a scene coordinator. So I would just have a coordinator for like in the master object, and that would be like, if the state equals start, go to room start, right? And so that's the way I would do that. I think like it seems harder than it actually is, because it's going from two different languages. As long as you don't, what's the word, like, as long as you're familiar with the other language that you're going into, you should be fine. But you have to be patient with yourself and not expect that you're just gonna like do it in a couple of hours. Like for me, I would give myself 2 days. I'd say maybe 2-3 days to get the majority done. I'd maybe spend the first day just playing about, trying to remember how to do things in GameMaker, and then do it bit by bit. But I would always start with the main loop. I don't know if you've got a main loop in yours, but I'd always start with the main loop as your master object, in whatever you're migrating to. And things will be different, right? GUI.collect will be slightly different. Your mouse.get position and things will be slightly different. So you'll be trying to remember how it was that you would get that with GML. But but those aren't too taxing. Like if I go into Google and if I go to Game Maker, get mouse position, and then so I could just jump in here and you'll find pretty quickly, there we go, mouse underscore Y. I don't think that's the, yeah, there we go, object click dot manager. Yeah, this rings a bell. Yeah, I think this is it. So yeah, I mean, like there would be obviously identify what are your equivalents, and then the issue would be where there's stuff that there isn't equivalent. Like that would be where you've got a really big problem. And I think this clock.txt would be one of them, but there wouldn't be that many. But you'll be able to find an equivalent for clock.txt in GML. There'll definitely be an equivalent, but maybe not exactly the same functionally. So you might notice some difference in performance. The reason I want to put this over into GML is quite simple, really. Is because GML is just much better designed for support and designed for releasing a game. So Python allows me to rapidly prototype, but I think at some point I'll be ready to launch this. I'd want to get this into GML. The only other thing I'd mention, and then I'll sort of wrap up on this bit, is just to say, like, it will come to the point where the more of the game that you do, the higher the chance that you might have to add an extra stuff or do significant code fixes in your migration. But that really depends on the sophistication of your code. And so yeah, like in what I've got, there's not going to be a lot of refactoring in the sense of refactoring on top of the migration. But for other people, there could be a significantly large thing that need to add in. But that would all depend on their initial design. Right. Let's go and build out this enemy UI. So I think I saw this working. It looked like it was working, but I'm not kind of happy with this, right? Because like we've got, I think like I build the starting team. Let's see, and I try to remember like ally destroyer. So I give the enemy a destroyer. Say start game's true. And I say, so I'm giving the enemy an MCR. So MCR is like that construction thing. So probably what I want to do is at one point I want it to deploy its construction yard. So what I'll say is, if it's uninitialized, I'm going to figure out which one, I'm going to get the computer to figure out which one is the MCR, and then I'm going to get it to deploy. So I'll go for enemies, I'll just let's see, bm dot enemy list if dot type equals MCR. So what we'll do is we'll go and look in our unit, see if I remember that's what it is. So I'm gonna tell the enemy to deploy the MCR. I think that's the best thing to do. So let's see. It's kind. So I called it kind. So I'm going to say if the kind equals MCR, and I'll say if dot deployed equals false, dot deployed equals true. See what happens there. See if that actually does anything. So in here, this adds 5 new allies. So I don't want to do this at the ally part. I'd want to do this maybe a bit earlier on. So I'll just say 3580. So this is just the time. I think it starts at 3600. So I'm going to say if it's unit, then I'm going to call this AI logic scene. I'll just keep it like that, see what happens. See if that works. Let's go looking on the enemy. I need to figure that out. For some reason, it doesn't start until I've... So at AE, will that deploy? Let's have a look. It deploys. Yeah, that's cool. That worked. Now the guys are going to go away and harvest it. Now here's the next funny thing. Watch what happens when it returns the money. It goes to me and not to the enemy, I think. Let's go check this out. So this is my money down here at the ore level. Let's wait till it's finished and then dump this money. Yeah, it paid me and not the enemy, so I need to sort that. There are other things where like I've got the counter ticking down, so I can make the money tick down. That's not a big deal. So we'll go to the MCR and we're going to go fix that. So in the action scene, I think, it's not the MCR, it'll be the harvesters. So opponent list allies, set invincibility, disabled before. It's harvest actions. Let's go look at the harvest actions. Yeah, I need to make smart ore finding logic, which is because at the moment what I'm actually doing is I'm tricking. I'm just saying for the enemies go to the first ore harvest logic, for the allies go for the second, which just happens to be in the right position. But I'll want them to actively seek out. I'll just say to do update harvest logic. Need them to be a bit smarter. So they'll harvest, they'll go back to the refinery, and then they'll dump the ore. Let's see. So I'm increasing my ore, but not the enemy's ore. And I'll need to add an object actually to do that, to give the enemy like an ore value, because obviously they're going to spend and buy and sell objects. Right, I'm going to wrap up just there just now. This is just really me just trying out new streams until I get the hang of it. I'll keep doing this and hopefully they'll get a little bit better. But yeah, so the idea is I'll keep doing this and I'll keep rolling out videos where I'm doing some development. But for now I'm going to cut the stream and